First-time game development feels a bit like learning how to drive. You don't know what any of the levers do, you're worried about wrecking the whole thing, and you're convinced that something might explode at any moment. Then, you get the hang of it, and although you might be riding the clutch a bit too hard and you find parallel parking difficult, you realise maybe everyone else does too. At least, that's what I've learned while putting together the first mechanic for my Game Boy Color game, which clearly makes me the developer equivalent of a rally driver now. For those new here, I'm a marketing artist making my first game. It's about walking my dog, and it runs on the Game Boy Color. Last week, we looked at key art and opened GB Studio for the first time. Today, we actually start making the game. This video is in 3 parts. A quick overview of how GB Studio works, struggles with Game Boy art, actually getting the game up and running. Okay? Go time. First, let's understand the scene we're trying to make. It's fairly simple. Toph moves back and forth at the bottom of the screen. You control the harness and try to drop it on her like a claw machine to attach it and begin the walk. If you've used design tools like Blender, After Effects or Resolve, GB Studio works a little like a node tree. Each scene is similar to a node and contains artwork, actors, anything interactable like NPCs or doors, triggers, areas that activate logic, collisions and layering, stopping you walking through walls or putting art in front of the player. Scenes link together with logic, triggered by inputs, so your whole game becomes one big web of nodes. For now, mine's simple. Title screen, claw machine minigame, win or lose screen, loop back to the title. That's the plan. We've already got a title screen from last time. It's in logo mode, which gives more detail at the cost of interaction. Press start and we jump to our minigame. The Game Boy has strict art rules, so even at prototype stage, the artwork has to be somewhat final or everything breaks. We saw last time what the limitations for color palettes were. So with that in mind, I worked through a few versions of the background. Whilst I'm trying to make this look good, all this artwork is prototype only. You'll see I've put the arrows and A button artwork in the background file, which might seem counterintuitive, we'll get back to that later. My real problem? Sprites and tile limits. Normally sprites are tiny, 8x8 or 8x16 pixels, but in my game they're huge, more like Pokemon Crystal battle sprites than overworld ones. Toph and her harness both started at 48x48. In the engine, they looked great. When I clicked play, half of Toph vanished. No errors in the debugger, not hitting the displayed tile limits, she just disappeared. After much head scratching, I shrank Toph to 40x40 and swapped the harness for a collar. That fixed it, but I didn't want a collar. You shouldn't put collars on dogs, especially small ones. They're very delicate, aren't they? So I redrew it. Harness goes on Toph, and the collar becomes a lead. That worked. Sprite colors are another limit, 3 colors plus transparency, but I found a way to stretch it to 5 by assigning different palettes to different 8x8 tiles. With a simple scene and only 2 sprites, I could dedicate multiple palettes just to Toph. Some tiles used black, brown, pink, others brown, pink, white. Combine them and she looks great. A few frames of animation later, she's ready. Time to make it work. After a lot of failed logic experiments, I realized, technically, this scene is a platformer. If we set the scene type to platformer, gravity to 0, then the lead floats left and right. Press A, gravity turns on, it drops. Platformer controls add velocity and acceleration, so it feels natural instead of stiff. Weird workaround maybe, but it works and it feels good. For Toph, we want fast, predictable movement across the screen, so the player can account for it. I did this with some move commands that had no velocity or speed ramping. I also added a player collision. Drop the lead, and if it collides with Toph, we change to the win scene. Miss, and the lead hits a trigger at the bottom. This resets its position, subtracts 1 from a global health variable, and updates a heart sprite on screen. If the variable decrements to 0, we change to the lose scene. Finally, for the buttons in the background, I used something called tile swapping so that I could save on sprite usage. The A button graphic presses in and out, the arrows animate, and respond to input. All of this is done by swapping a portion of the background with a separate tile. Why doesn't this count towards the sprite tile limit? Because it's not an actor, I think. Put it all together, and we've got a game. Of course, it's not done. Health only works in this scene. There's no sound, no music, no save system, no level select. All of that will come later. But as a first step, I'm calling it a win. Next time, we'll look at adding music and sound effects. If there's something specific you'd like to see, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'll just keep fumbling my way through. This isn't an instructional course, it's just a real look at what a real novice does when they try to make a real game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Pokit Boy.